Hello, my sunshines, and welcome to episode 15 of your session with me, Dr. Deborah Brown. And today we're going to talk about attachment and attachment styles. I noticed that there are a lot of people talking about this on the interwebs, and I want to make sure that you get a really accurate picture of what this is all about. So, attachment styles are connected to how we find and keep relationships. Now, that can be relationships with a partner, that can be relationships with your friends, with your family, but all of that is based on our attachment style. So, today we're going to talk about what an attachment style is, what attachment is, and also how to assess your own style and perhaps the style of a partner or someone close to you in your life. Because the better that you understand the relationship, the better you can be in the relationship. So, let's get started. So, as humans, we attach, we crave attachment. Even the people that say they don't usually do at some level. Loneliness is one of those terrible human emotions that people really just hate to feel and naturally on purpose hate to feel. We need to collaborate, we need to be connected. It's part of our humanity. So we are born to attach. So think about a baby. When you look at a baby when it's first born, it's kind of all over the place and floppy. But eventually, what happens is the baby learns to make eye contact. It learns to read emotions on the mother's face and eventually learns to read emotions on everybody's face. The reason the baby learns those things is to determine if it's safe. That's the foundation of attachment. Am I safe with this person? Can I connect to them? Will they take care of me? That's the foundation of attachment. Also, attachment is the bond that we develop. And the more we're bonded to someone, the more we trust someone, the more connected we are, the more our relationship grows and becomes interdependent. Interdependent is a good thing. We've talked before about codependence and how that's not real good. But we do need to be dependent on other people. We are when we're a child to survive, but when we get older, it's not for our survival, it's more for our emotional health that we need those connections. Together has always been safer. Back in the caveman days, people bonded together because it was easier to gather food and to take care of the group together than it was apart. It's still true now. A lot of us are much better off when we can partner with someone as a roommate or as a partner, just financially. We're a lot better when we have somebody to bounce ideas off of. And we're a lot better when we have a safe place to go when we're having a really hard time. Together is better. But if you have trouble with attachment, together can be harder. And what happens when it gets harder? Well, then we don't want to do it anymore. How many people have you known that have dated or had breakups and said, I'm never going to do that again? Or people that get hurt by someone and it makes them not want to attach. A lot of that is probably due to whatever happened before that attachment issue. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. How did you get here to where you are? So, happiness comes from within. Everybody has been telling you that. It comes from within. You have to love yourself before you love other people. It's true. But a lot of how we feel about ourselves is directly related to the people that we are attached to. If you have a friend that hypes you up and makes you feel good about yourself, you better believe that's helping your self esteem. When you have a friend or a family member that picks on you, you better believe that's deteriorating your self esteem unless you're at a place where you can really withstand that well. So, how much we believe in ourselves, how our self esteem flows, can be very connected to who's in our life, and especially a partner. I would bet you've known someone over the years who had a partner that kind of tore them down, and you could watch that person's self esteem go down because of that partnership. That's an unhealthy attachment. An attachment to someone who hurts you or makes your life worse is unhealthy attachment. So, why would we do that? Well, we do it because we don't know the difference sometimes. But I'm going to make sure that you do now. So, my experience with attachment in working with individuals is that if someone doesn't understand their own attachment issues, that life can be really hard for them. They don't have healthy relationships. Their relationships cause them a lot of pain. And once an individual understands their attachment style, like you're going to do today, you start to look at the fault in the relationship differently. You start to go, maybe it's my behavior. Or no, that's definitely their behavior. And I want you to know the difference. But with attachment, what we're going to do today is we're going to look at you first. And I want you to keep that in mind. Any relationship struggle with any person in your life, I want you to look at your role in it first because we are very eager to blame other people. Oh, it's my mother. She's awful. Or, oh, it's my husband is terrible to me. That might all be true. But let's look at your role in perpetuating it, allowing it, or maybe participating in it as well. So, with couples, attachment is usually a problem and usually feeds on the other person and their own issues. It's one of the first things I look for when I meet with a couple is what is their type of attachment? If you have a person who's anxiously attached and a person who's avoidantly attached, and we're going to explain what those are a little later. But if you have people that one of them is anxious and worried about the attachment and the other one is just aloof and avoidant, imagine the pain that would cause for the anxiously attached person. So in couples, I look at that dynamic. And that's why it's going to be important for you too to look at that dynamic in your own relationship. But I need you starting with you first. So, what is attachment in itself? How do we define it? And the way I define it is connection. The varying degrees of connection in your life are really what determines attachment. So if you have parents and you are close to your parents, you are attached from the years of that experience. If you have a new partner that you just started seeing, there should be no attachment. If you've gone on 2 dates, there should not be attachment. There should be developing attachment. So, part of attachment is knowing the right degree to be connected to someone at the right level. So, we all know people who have dated someone once and they go crazy and they torture the person to death and they call them and they sit and wait for them to text. That's a false attachment. That's not real. You've only met that person one time, two times. There isn't an attachment there yet. So attachment varies in degree, but we all should have attachments at all those levels. Our really close people are people that we're developing attachment to, and are people that we're not really attached to, but we know. So, what happens if attachment goes wrong? The best example I can give is that in working with children previously, I worked with some children that were adopted from Eastern European orphanages. And these kids were manifesting with terrible problems in their early teens, aggression, just oppositional behavior. And I really started to wonder why was it that these kids were having such a terrible time? And I began to look into their past and realized that some of these children were in orphanages until 18 months, 2 years, where they were not touched. They were fed, in one case, like hamsters with a bottle tucked into the crib that was basically a cage. And some of them were in cribs with other children, which was a little better. But generally, these were kids who did not get the love and secure attachment in the first 18 months of their lives. And because of that, they lost the crucial ability to really attach to other humans later in life. So you'll hear sometimes people talk about attachment disorders. That's one where these children were never touched, they were never made to feel safe, secure, or loved around other humans. And as they emerged and got older, that manifested in the way they attached to people. They really didn't care what other people felt, and they weren't used to being soothed, so they acted out. So, attachment is crucial. How you get attachment in those first 2 years of your life determines what happens in the rest. But attachment evolves over time based on our experiences too. We're going to explore that a little. Think about the role of our parents in that. If you listen to what I'm saying, you're going to hear that your parents are crucial in your attachment style. And that can be devastating for some of us to think about when we look back and see that our parents were not really good parents. Because then we go, gosh, well, they never loved me. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But the truth of it was, if they didn't show you healthy attachment, that will manifest in you as an adult. And if you don't pay attention to that and really try to understand what that means, you'll perpetuate some of the same harm that they did on yourself. So if you had parents that weren't really considerate of your emotions and you normalize that, you might be with a partner who's not considerate of your emotions or friends that use you because you're kind of used to that. But if you have a parent who is very attached and very consistently kind and made you feel safe and secure, you might go out into the world with a little bit of an advantage when it comes to relationships because you're used to feeling safe. So you'll know it when you see it. So I think of it as the example of how you teach a child to swim. There are people that take their children to swimming lessons. I know somebody that took a baby under a year and it was adorable. And they take them to swimming lessons and they ease them into the pool and they make sure they're comfortable with the water and they teach them how to swim. And these kids are swimming as babies. And then there are the other parents. Probably a lot of us 40 plus people had these kind of parents where they would throw you in the water and say, well, they're going to swim or they'll die. So they're going to learn to swim. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be the kind of parent or have the kind of parent who throws me in the water and makes me suffer in order to survive. And I want you to think about that. Were your parents the get me in the pool, make me comfortable, and let me grow? Or were they the throw you in the water and make you swim? If they threw you in the water, figuratively, they weren't really teaching you safe and secure attachment. A person that puts you at risk is not a safe, secure person for you. And if that was your parent, they may have shaped you in a way that made you a little insecure about attaching to people. When the I look at trauma, one of the biggest traumas is that when people who love you hurt you. It's a very confusing message. It teaches you that love is capable of creating a space for harm. And that creates some attachment disorders. So, the other thing that affects this is early partnering. When you're in middle school and high school and you have dating experiences, if those dating experiences are detrimental or humiliating or leave you feeling bad about yourself, this is powerful. A lot of people look at that and go, oh, it's kid stuff, it's puppy love, it's all of that. No, this is your first step into being vulnerable and connected to another human that's not your family or your friend. And if those attachments go awry, it sends a message to your self esteem, to your sense of security and safety. And it tells you something about yourself that you might not be able to understand. If you're older and you have a bad dating experience, you can be like, oh, she was just crazy, or that guy wasn't nice. But when you're a teenager and you have a bad dating experience, you often look within and find the things wrong with you. So those experiences, when they go bad, can be really, really formative in the belief system about your value and your worth and your ability to safely attach to another person. This is why, if you're a parent and you have kids that are in middle school playing around with dating, that I want you to really consider that you create an open space for them to talk about those relationships with you because they're important. And I want you to understand what's going on and affirm what happens, positive or negative, and affirm that child to make sure that those relationships are exploratory but not doing damage. So, a lot of attachment is about consideration. The people that you are most attached to are the people you give the most consideration. So I know for me, if I'm going to make a plan, I live with someone, I'm married to someone, I give him a lot of consideration in what I'm doing. Doesn't mean he's in charge of it, but because of that attachment, I give him consideration. If I'm doing something with my friends, I try to give them all equal consideration. Everybody's invited, right? So if I'm not that attached to you, you won't be considered for that event, right? And that's okay because different levels of consideration go along with different levels of attachment. So think about yourself. Who's your first priority? Who's your second priority? How do you consider them? And then think about those relationships, and are they healthy, good relationships? And if something pops up and goes, no, then that means we have to work on attachment because you're giving consideration to someone that's not making you feel good. So your connection to others is crucial because you have to navigate a lot of hard stuff in life. You have to navigate all of the things that come in life. And if you have someone you're attached to that can help you with that, life gets a lot easier. That's why we're talking about attachment today. I want your life to be better because of other people, not worse. So, just as we needed those parents back in the day to make us feel safe and secure, the people in our life today as adults still play that role. So, our connections are the platform that we grow from. The soil that we grow from is what lives in our house with us, what we operate, who we operate with. And if I asked you the question about your soil now, I'd want you to be able to say that you had people around you that you were attached to safely and securely. And if I asked you a question about the soil that you grew from, ideally that would have been safe and secure. But I find for a lot of us, it was not. And we need to recognize that. And we weren't responsible for those things that happened when we were little kids, but we are responsible now. So if you work on your attachment and your ability to be attached now, that's really, really awesome. And you're really capable of doing that because you're not a result of all those things forever. Those things will always be in you, the things that happen to you, but they don't have to be the driving force in how you have relationships now. So I want you to be real honest with yourself and think, am I perpetuating lessons learned for better or for worse? So, what determines our level of attachment to someone? Typically, it's what we share. So, the closest people to you are the people that usually you have shared the most about yourself with. So, think about that. Why do we share with other people about us? Because we feel safe and secure. So think about that. If you're attached to someone, but they don't really know you or understand you, that attachment is probably not healthy. And I'm going to give you some sort of criteria here so you can think about if your relationships are securely attached. So the way I look at it is attachments are either secure or insecure. There's really not much in between unless you're building on a new relationship. So I'm going to give you some questions here and we're going to talk about what makes something secure or insecure. Now, what we want is we want our attachments to be secure so that we can live healthy emotional lives and have healthy connection. So let's talk about parents first. And I'm going to bring up a few points about parents. And these are kind of questions. As for your parents, will they hit me, yell at me, or berate me? Will they pick me up when I'm down? Do I have to perform for them? If any of those things were things you had to think about as a child, it is very likely that you had an insecure attachment. And I'm going to read them again because I really want you to consider these. Will they hit me, yell at me, or berate me? Will they pick me up when I'm down? Do I have to perform for them? If any of those things were things that you had to worry about or think about, you did not have healthy, secure attachment to your parents. If you had to wonder if you would be berated or wonder if you would be understood, you had insecure attachment. And that insecure attachment, unless you've worked on it, could still be present in your relationships. Let's talk about your friendships. Here are some questions to think about. Are they only here for the fun times? Do I consistently do more for them than they do for me? Am I careful about what I share? Do they really respect me or do they talk about me behind my back? We've all been in friendships where we've had to worry about those things. If those things are in your mind, that is not a secure attachment, a secure friendship. And that's okay because you can have tons of acquaintances. That's the difference between an acquaintance and a real friend. A real friend you're safely attached to. An acquaintance is one you're not sure about yet. Here's your partnership questions. This is about a person that you're dating, partnered with, or living with in a close situation or married to. Are you always looking around the corner at other people and going, could that be my soulmate? That one's powerful. Talk to a lot of people who do that and they're married and they're out at the market going, wow, is that my soulmate over there? Huge indicator for me that you are not attached to the person you're with. Because if you are securely attached, you could look at another person and go, they're cute, but you wouldn't wonder if they're your soulmate. That's dark. That's pointing to something. Another thing in partnerships is threatening to leave. Do you threaten to end the relationship frequently? That is an insecure attachment, and you're creating an insecure attachment in the other person if they believe you're going to walk out at any given time. Do you idealize singlehood? Oh, if I were single, my life would be so awesome. I could do what I want. I've felt that one and I have heard that one a lot, and that one to me is very sad. Because why is it that your connection to a partner is such a prison that you're not doing what you want? Is it a problem with the partner or is it a problem with you not standing up for yourself? Another sign of difficulty in attachment is avoiding physical contact. This is where you don't touch your partner for fear that that might make them think you're initiating sex, or you don't become affectionate with your partner because you don't want to give them that. It feels too generous, right? Avoiding physical contact shows that you are not securely attached to your partner because the physical contact should be easy, comfortable, and feel safe. Secret keeping. Secret keeping is very powerful because, as we've talked about, secrets build shame. Something as what you perceive as innocent as, I hid the bag in the car when I went shopping. You kept a secret. And is that a big deal? Maybe. Maybe it doesn't sound like it is, but there's a reason you have to hide your behavior. All behavior in attached relationships should exist in the light. It should exist in a way that could be seen and doesn't have to be hidden. So if you're keeping secrets, you're not feeling safe and secure in that attachment to be who you are. Escaping. Look, we all need to escape once in a while. We all need to run away and go walk through Home Goods or whatever it is you do to escape. But if you find yourself staying at the office late so that you don't have to go home and be with your partner, if you find yourself making excuses to do things to not be with your partner, you're not securely attached. You're avoiding something. And flirting. This one is one of those that a lot of people feel differently about. Look, I think some of us have flirtatious personalities. I know that I do. And I think some of us are just super friendly and we like to talk and we like to connect to people. But there's a difference between that and flirting with the intent to get someone's attention or to start something with someone. That is a dangerous game because you're opening a door that, if you walk through, could change your relationship if you're living in a monogamous relationship. So, those are all signs about your partnership that should make you question if you're securely attached. Now, why wouldn't you be? Well, maybe it's the wrong person. Maybe that person isn't the right partner for you. Or maybe you need to look at your own attachment and consider if you're working hard enough to maybe see if that person is the right person. And a lot of those behaviors might be preventing that. So, what's the, you know, thought around the behaviors that I just talked about? All behaviors have context. All behaviors communicate something. Behaviors don't just come out of the blue. You're flirting with someone because you need something from that person or want something, not because you just go around flirting with people. There's always a reason for our behaviors. And a lot of times, if we don't feel attached and we don't feel safe, we'll reach out to other people to try to build that safety somewhere else. So, one of the things I've heard a lot and I disagree with is people will say, once a cheater, always a cheater, right? Cheating, infidelity, these are relationship behaviors, but they're very often based on the context of a specific relationship. Infidelity happens when a relationship is not securely attached. So we go out and we do something that breaks a rule of the relationship. But in securely attached relationships, people who cheated before may not cheat again. So when somebody says to you, oh, once a cheater, always a cheater, look at the context. Now, it could be true. It could be that the person is just a scoundrel and lies. Um, but more likely, it's about the context of the relationship. The other part of this that I want you to think about when we talk about partners is, would you be a different person in a different relationship? So, a securely attached relationship emphasizes all of the things about you, positive and negative, and helps you to grow the things that are negative and encourage the things that are positive. So when you're with somebody and you're working on a project, that person is cheering you on, right? If you're with somebody and you're struggling with something, that person is down in it with you. Secure attachments mean you share all of that and that you're not doing it by yourself. And that sounds obvious, doesn't it? That's what we all want. But you have to consider that a lot of us that came from insecure attachments have learned some bad attachment behaviors. And I'll go over a couple of those because I want to make sure you're not doing these. These are behaviors that come from suffering, they're not character flaws. The first one is curating yourself, making yourself fit into a package that people feel is more digestible or consumable. It could be shrinking yourself. It could be just creating this picture of yourself that is palatable to other people. And a lot of us learn that when we have parents that we're never good enough for. So this is what a lot of people call people pleasing, right? Is I better not wear anything too bright because she might get embarrassed if I do that, right? We should never be shrinking ourselves or curating ourselves for other people. We should be out there being whoever it is we want to be, and our attached partner should be behind us, egging that on if it's healthy for us. The other thing, and we've talked about this a lot in other episodes, is that you learn from insecure attachment to be uncomfortable. Have you ever had a relationship where you were just uncomfortable? And rather than make the other person uncomfortable, you stay uncomfortable and you get really good at it. And we've all seen this. We've all seen couples where you can look at them and go, ugh, like she's really suffering over there and he's just annoying and she just stays uncomfortable and doesn't speak up against it. Well, that's not a secure attachment because she can't be honest. So, all of this comes from the fact that we are sanded and formed by the attachments that we grew up with. But now, what I'm saying to you is that you have a choice now. And you may have an attachment style either secure or insecure. So, based on everything we've said so far, I want you to think for a second. Is your attachment style secure and healthy with the people closest to you? Or is it feeling a little insecure? So, within that secure, insecure, there's a bunch of attachment styles. And this is the stuff I've been seeing on the internet. People talk about anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. Those are all valid ways of looking at it. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what those are so you can begin to think about yourself. But keep in mind, none of these are permanent. I've had people come to me and say, oh, I'm an anxious attacher and that's just how I am. Okay, that's what you are right now. It's not what you're going to stay. Any insecure attachment style can move to be a secure attachment style if you just pay attention enough and you work hard enough on it. These are not permanent and they are often based on the relationship that you are in. you can look back at your relationships and see if you were a different kind of person with those different kinds of people, your attachment style can bend and flex based on your relationship. So, how do you know the difference between you being secure and insecure in a short, easy way? Are your relationships hard? Are they harder than they should be? And relationships are hard. Relationships are work, but they shouldn't be all the time. I think of it as like a 90-10 rule. 90% of the time, your relationship should be sailing. It should be firm. It should be good. 10% of the time, you can disagree, you can navigate, you can negotiate. But if your relationship is hard most of the time, we've got an issue with the level of attachment because we're not navigating conflict well. So if you have a relationship where there's a lot of resentment, where things are abnormal most of the time, where you feel like you don't have power, you have an insecure attachment because you're not speaking up for what it is that you need. So, how do you know you have a healthy attachment? Let's go there for a minute because there might be some of you out there that are doing this right. If you have a healthy attachment, that means that you talk about things, you notice the trends, you have a lot of conversation about the relationship itself. You know what? I noticed that we haven't had sex in 2 weeks. Can we talk about why that is? That's a healthy relationship because you didn't sit and resent it. You talked about it. I noticed the other day that when we were out, you talked to that person and I didn't understand what you meant. Can you explain that to me? That's a healthy relationship. The other thing is that you don't cling on to the bad parts. You actually try to fix them. A lot of people in healthy relationships don't have resentment. They don't have things they sit around and get angry about because they don't let them fester. So, those are sort of the barometers I use for healthy relationships. Are we talking about things? Are we solving things, even when it's uncomfortable? So, what makes you a healthy attacher is how you decode all that relationship behavior. So, what is your view of togetherness? What does that mean? Right? How do you deal with conflict? How do you communicate needs and manage expectations? And the single biggest one that I love, my favorite one for healthy attachment is, do you dream and set goals together? That is the number one indicator of a healthy attachment. When I sit a couple down and I say, where do you guys see selves in the next 10 years, the next 20 years? And I can tell you, most people go, they look at each other and they go, I don't know. We never talked about it. Wait, this is the rest of your life with this person. And you have never talked about what you think it's going to look like in 10 years? Those dreams that you have inside of you deserve to be shared with another person. And if you aren't sharing those with another person, then that means you're not really attached to them. A lot of people get partnered without the idea of forever. And that's a very complex topic for another time. Um, but typically, when we commit, there's at least one person in that relationship who thinks it's forever. And if that's the case, if it's forever, then forever includes the future and your dreams. And if you're not dreaming with this person, are you invested? And are you really attached? Just something to think about. So, you need to understand your style first, right? If you're secure and healthy and everything we just said was happening, good for you. But statistics say that's not the case, that there are only 15% of us have healthy attachment levels. 15%. It's not great. So I'm going to go into the unhealthy types right now because that's probably something we should explore based on those numbers. So the first style is disorganized attachment. Statistics say that 40% of us have disorganized attachment. That's a pretty big lump. What disorganized attachment is basically evolving, emerging, learning attachment. I would say that most people in their 20s have disorganized attachment. They're learning how to be in relationships. They're learning how to be an adult in relationships and form healthy attachments and bonds. So if your attachment is disorganized, it just means you're figuring it out. And that's okay. I think most of us stay in that stage a really long time until we find another person who's willing to work it out with us. So, disorganized attachment primarily comes from not having good relationship models, not having people in your life that you've seen have really healthy attachments. So, you're out there trying to do it and you're learning. And honestly, it's one of the best ways to develop healthy attachment is to find the right person and practice and learn and hopefully find somebody that also understands that you're learning. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things is when people get into a relationship and say, we're figuring it out. It's not perfect, but we're trying really hard and we're invested. That's the best you can hope for, right? So 25% of us are avoidant attachers. This one is pretty tricky. I have a poem that I'm going to read about this to best explain what avoidant attachment looks like. So, this poem is from Michaela Poetry on Instagram, and it's called For the Avoidant. What if you didn't run just this once? What if you took a deep breath and asked yourself what it means to trust? What if trust means staying? You are worthy of giving yourself a chance at love. Maybe there's not something wrong with everyone you've ever tried to love. Maybe finding their flaws is your way of protecting yourself. I know you've spent your whole life thinking that it's easier to be alone, that growing up it was easier to be alone. It's not your fault you were taught that vulnerability equals pain. This is your permission to honor your desire for connection, to give yourself grace for your hyper independence, to start looking at everything you love about love instead of everything that scares you. That's about the best description of avoidant attachment I've ever heard because avoidant looks like someone is aloof and doesn't care. But that's not really what it is. They're afraid. And avoidant attachers are prevalent, and there's a reason for that. I'm saying 25%, which doesn't sound that prevalent, but think about it. Avoidant attachers are in the dating pool frequently. They are in and out of relationships. When you go online on a dating website, you're going to get a lot of avoidant attachers because these people dip in and out of relationships so frequently that they end up in the dating pool a lot more. So I hear this from a lot of people on dating sites that they'll get someone interested and they disappear. Well, a healthy attacher says, I don't think this is for me, and we're just not going to do this anymore. And avoidant ghosts because they just don't want to be connected. So you're going to run into a lot of these if you're in the dating pool because they're swimming in that pool more than anybody else. So an avoidant attacher has a huge desire for independence. They have a fear of emotional intimacy. They have difficulty forming bonds and they're jaded sometimes about partnering. That partnering has a lot of bad associations for them from their own history. They have a fear of vulnerability sometimes and view vulnerability emotionally as a weakness. And they prefer their own autonomy over a relationship. So think about that for a minute. That's what we talked about earlier, where I said, do you fantasize about being single, right? A lot of people think that dependence on someone else is a weakness or that it threatens their independence. And I'm a firm believer that you can have independence within a relationship and still have an emotional dependence. But anxious attachers fear that being in that relationship steals their independence. And that's because they've probably been in unhealthy relationships where maybe that happened. So, anxious attachment is also a result of trauma. It's a result of maybe having been betrayed. So, it's an internal conflict in that person. Even if they really like you, even if they love you, they might still fight against the tide because they view that love as a sign of weakness or a place of vulnerability. So, how do you know that someone's avoidant? They express a very big fear of being controlled, a very big fear of being hurt. What are some of the things that they do as a result? They keep you at arm's length, emotionally and physically sometimes. Sometimes they disregard your emotions. Now, this is one where I have people come to me and say they're a narcissist. As we know, narcissists are a lot more rare than we think they are. A lot of times, what we perceive as a narcissist is an avoidant person. They send you mixed signals. And one of my favorite sayings for people who are dating is you just take those signals as a no. Mixed signals are a no. It is not maybe yes, maybe no. If someone can't tell you how they feel, if someone gives you mixed signals, you can assume that there's enough doubt there that it's worth exploring. So if they're fine either way, break up, don't break up. You're here, you're not here. What a terrible feeling to get from a partner that you really don't matter that much. And avoidant people play games. They aren't always straight with you. So, a lot of times, what you're perceiving as a narcissist or a terrible person could just be an avoidant person with a person with an avoidant attachment style who's really insecure and has been maybe wounded. Doesn't give them a right to hurt you. And not all avoidants are out to hurt people, they're mostly out to protect themselves. So, another type of attachment is the anxious attacher. Now, anxious attachers are 20% of the population, according to the statistics. I think it's probably a little higher. I think a lot of the people that I work with who have relationship issues are very anxiously attached. And I have another poem that's actually going to describe that to you. This poem is by Moni at Cass Poems on Instagram. Anxious, anxiously attached, it's me. At times it feels like a mental disease. Intrusive thoughts fester within, obsessing over a lover's smile, counting each second he doesn't reply as proof that he's changed his mind. This type of love feels like a burden, constantly seeking reassurance about his feelings all the time, sabotaging myself all around, drowning in my own fear of abandonment, blinding me to flaws that I've found. This type of love is a burden. That's another really good description of an anxious attachment. So much of that was just so true. Fear of abandonment, needing reassurance, struggling with security, and a big one, they don't love me as much as I love them. That one is dangerous. If you are in an attached relationship and you feel like you love the person more, that is a topic for conversation because that idea will poison you and it will poison the relationship because you're always going to be looking for reasons why they don't love you as much. And you'll find them, whether they're there or not. So keep in mind that's a dangerous idea. When you take their behaviors personally all the time, even when they're not about you, when you're looking at them constantly and waiting for them to fail you. And there's a really ugly belief in anxious attachment styles that I really find this to be so sad. And the ugly belief is this is my only chance. I have to make it work. This is the best I can do. And I've talked to people over the years who have said that if I lose this, what will I have? And that to me is tragic. And we're going to talk a little bit later about that one a little bit more. But when you look at someone and say, this is the best I can do, you are making a very, very terrible assessment of your capability to connect to other people or to attach. So, what do anxious attachers do in relationships? They test. This one's nasty. If you do this one, I want you to really think about it. Where they wait to see if the person does the right thing. And if the person doesn't do the right thing, they fail them. So basically, he hasn't texted me all day. I'm going to sit and wait. And if he doesn't text me by 8 o'clock, that means he doesn't love me, right? Or he hasn't brought me a present in months. If he doesn't bring me a present this month, he doesn't love me. You are testing a person without letting them in on what they're supposed to be learning. Very, very anxious attachment issue. Acting out. This one's a surprising one to some people. They don't look at themselves as acting out, but very often a person who's anxiously attached will push the other person to get an emotional response. Because if, and kids do this, think about tantrums, right? A kid throws a tantrum to get a need met. Sometimes adults throw tantrums too to get a need met, just to get a response out of someone. And I get it. It's infuriating when you feel like you don't know where someone stands or where you stand. But acting out or throwing a tantrum is a anxious attachment style way of rectifying that. Not the healthiest thing. Anxious attachers also play games, and it's the same kind of manipulation that avoidant attachers do, is let me just work around the real issue rather than hitting it head on. Anxious attachers often put their partners and their friends on pedestals, which really just means they put them up as perfect, and they ignore, like the poem said, ignoring the obvious red flags or the obvious problems because that person's so perfect and they idolize them. That's dangerous. We don't want to do that with anybody in our lives. Even our children, we want to make sure that we're not putting someone up as some perfect paragon and worshiping them. The other one that anxious attachers do is that if this goes away, I won't be okay. That one is tragic. I've seen a lot of people do this, that they lose a relationship and their life falls apart. Now, granted, relationships can do that to us. We have to recover. But when you operate in the relationship with that fear, you're not healthily attached. Because if you believe your life's going to fall apart, then you should be fighting tooth and nail to keep that relationship. But believing that one person is the key to your life being okay or not okay, it's tenuous, right? Because partnerships are important, and yeah, divorce is hard and all of that. But we have to be okay no matter what. And putting all of your eggs in the basket of another person is a dangerous thing. And you can do that if you're healthily attached. You can do a lot together. You can have a life together. But when you're anxiously attached, you're never going to feel safe in that. The other thing that anxiously attached people do is something called limerence. And this is a word I've seen kind of popping up in psychology a lot more. Limerence is the idea that you have an intense obsessive infatuation with someone. And I see this a lot with people who are dating, and a lot with younger people too. And they will have an online experience with someone in a conversation, and they haven't even met the person yet on a dating site, and they will obsess about it. They will sit by their phone and wait for that person. They will wait for that person to ask them out. They'll maybe go on a date and they'll just think about that person relentlessly, and it's obsessive. And I've had people where their friends are around them going, "You always do this. You always jump in too fast." It's called limerence. Limerence is where you make a person an object of love before it's really love. And I see it a lot where people will have these minor experiences and create a whole thing in their head about their future with that person. And I used to joke with someone that I used to see, and she would be dating, and I would be like, "You're going to go on the first date and you're not going to think about marriage." And we used to laugh about it, but it was true. It was because she was already planning her whole trajectory around these people by the time she got to the first date. And then it would be devastating if it didn't work. So be mindful if you're an anxious attacher of this thing called limerence. We think it's love. It is not love, it's obsession and infatuation. So, those are all of the types of insecure attachments, but we all want secure attachments. We want ease of connection. We want development of trust. We want joy from meaningful interactions. But what prevents this is if we keep in one of those negative, insecure attachment styles. So, a healthy attachment style flows, the relationship flows, the relationship feels equal. No one loves anybody more, and there's a healthy balance of me, you, and us. Doesn't that sound nice? We're all able to have that. We just can't get in the way of it. So, a good relationship is also you are you. You get to be you. And it mostly feels good. And when it feels bad, you still believe it's going to be okay. Think about that. When you get in a fight with somebody that means something to you, do you let the world fall apart or do you believe it's eventually going to be okay? Very big part of indicating to me if someone's having a healthy attachment is when they say the whole world falls apart when we fight. The whole world should not fall apart no matter what the fight is. It should just be in the back of your mind. We're going to be okay. We're going to get through that because you fight differently when you believe that. So, what if it's not secure? What are we going to do here? What if we just did this and you went, oh my gosh, my relationships are not secure? What do I do now? Well, keep in mind that if you know what your attachment style seems like, you can change it. And I want you to seriously consider that. If it's you in a couples therapy addresses attachment all over the place. Couples therapy is always good, even if it's the tiniest little seed of a doubt or the tiniest little problem. And the way I describe is sort of like the moment when you go to couples therapy is when you feel like you can't say the thing and you don't know why, or you do know why. And then you get into a room just like this one, and you sit next to your partner, and someone else helps you to say the thing. That can be incredibly valuable and incredibly liberating to be in a space where you can say all the things you need to heal the relationship. So I say that looking at your attachment style is like an x ray. It shows you as to what's really going on beneath your coupling and beneath your relationships. Your attachment style is the underpinning of how you're relating. So I want to talk to you about something that I want you to keep in mind, and it's called abundance theory, right? Abundance theory is that there are lots of people out there for you, whether it's partners, whether it's friends. And people don't like when I say this, but this is my firm belief. And I believe that there is not a soulmate. People hate when I say that, but I believe it. I don't think that there's one person on this earth that is who we're supposed to be with. I think with the 8 billion people on the earth, the odds are there are probably quite a few people that would not only be suitable partners, but partners that you would love and that could love you and that you would be kind to each other and reinforce each other's good parts and fix each other's bad parts together. And I believe that that's not one person. The odds are just not in favor of that. But if you go around believing that a person is your soulmate and your only, you may stay in something that might not be the best thing for you. So, abundance theory says, I'm going to make a good decision about my relationships, that I'm going to decide to choose to work on something with a person because I'm not going to lose my independence in order to attach to someone who's not going to make my life better, that I'm worth having everything I believe I deserve. Now you have to be careful with that because you can't look at a person and go, oh, they're not tall enough. Let me move on to the next soulmate. I don't mean it like that. What I'm saying is that everyone is imperfect and it's your degree of how much you want to work on that relationship that will determine its success. So, how do you know if it's fixable, right? What if you're in an unattached relationship? How do you know that it's fixable? It's pretty simple. There are two things you must have in order to move forward. And the first is love, which is usually the easy part. And the second is respect. If you are in a relationship where you are not being respected and you are not giving respect, it needs to change. We need to look at what's going on there. Love and respect. And this is every relationship in your life. Bottom line, starting point is love and respect. Love is not enough. Love is not the only thing that we need when we attach to people. It's all of the other stuff that goes with that, which is respect, dignity, kindness, consideration. Love's a good start. So, know your style And then start to think about your partner style: avoidant, disorganized, anxious, secure, hopefully. I have a great book for you that's going to help you figure this out. It's called Attached, and it's by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. And the fun thing about this book is that it has assessments that you can give yourself about attachment style. And then it also has an assessment that you can do about your partner to try to identify their attachment style. So I thought that's kind of fun and could be really helpful, and talks a lot more about some of the ideas we're talking about today. So I'm going to leave you with the top 10 ways to create healthy attachments. So these we're going to run through quickly, but I just want you to listen and think about, are you doing these, and are these just areas for you to work on? Number one, learn to manage conflict. Number two, communicate, communicate, communicate every day. Number three, be flexible, even if it's uncomfortable. Try something new with your partner. Listen to something or explore something with them that you normally wouldn't be interested in. Number four, recognize games and secrets in yourself and in your partner. These are poisonous. Number five, get close physically and emotionally. Make time for both of those things to happen in your life. If not every day, at least every week. Number six, solve resentments. No grudges. No holding things for weeks and months at a time. Number seven, treat each other with respect. Always. Don't talk about your partner behind their back. Don't demean them ever in front of them or behind them. Number eight, be responsible for each other. Use we when it's appropriate. Use I when it's appropriate, but give consideration when you need to. Number nine, be available to them and prioritize them. Make sure that they know that they're important to you and that they have a regular place in their life, in your life. Number 10, encourage. Humans need encouragement and we do not get enough of it. Be the person that encourages the people around you, especially your partner. So, if you follow all of these things, your relationship gets better, your life gets better. Everything feels better because you're learning how to have healthy attachments. So, what I would love for you to do is, if you want to get the book, read the book and learn more. But if you want, we're going to take some comments on our Instagram. And I would like for you to make a comment either about something you loved in an episode, something you'd love to see in an episode. And then we're going to pick one of those comments and we're going to send you this book. So if you're real excited about this book, get on the Instagram and make a comment about something meaningful that you've learned or applied or something else you'd like to see, and we're going to pick one of those and we're going to send that book out right away. So you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at My Session with Dr. Deborah Brown, or at Brownstone Center, or me at Dr. Deborah Brownstone. So follow us, and we've got lots of fun stuff going on, so keep an eye on it. And then that is it for today. We talked about a lot of things and a lot of big things because relationships are big things. So, my sunshines, I need you to take care of yourselves, take care of your relationships, and I will see you next time. Bye.